37 past the hour. Joining us from Capitol Hill, Chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Bob Corker of Tennessee. Also with us, member of that committee, Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. Good to have you both on the show.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. You just took an important trip to Uganda to highlight a proposed budget cut that you all think is not a program that doesn't need to be cut. Tell us about it. Tell us what you saw.
Well, it was 274,000 people in a refugee camp, something that I wish every American could experience firsthand just to see what good the United States of America does. So yes, we did want to highlight the importance of us continuing to support these kind of initiatives. By the way, with 1% of our budget, all diplomatic and aid efforts, 1% of the budget. But secondarily, we wanted to focus on food aid reform, where unfortunately we're forced to send U.S. commodities overseas with U.S. flagged ships in many cases that have difficulties getting to these places, sometimes taking 6 months, most importantly, costing 40% more than we could just buy it in the region. So we'd like to use U.S. dollars much more efficiently and feed, by the way, 5 to 8 million more people with the same dollars. But it was great to be with Chris Coons, who's an outstanding leader on our committee and someone who's really leading the charge on this effort.
I was grateful for a chance to be with Chairman Corker, to actually hold a child whose mother has just come out of weeks of fleeing violence in South Sudan, and to see them get to a safe place, to help feed them for the first time, and to look in the eyes of refugees is a very powerful experience. This was on Good Friday, and one of the main reasons that we continue to feed the world is because it's the right thing to do. But the more important thing is that it actually helps keep us safer by preventing fragile states from becoming failed states, and by teaching the world about our values. And I'm grateful that Chairman Corker and I have a bill that would help taxpayer dollars go farther in more efficiently delivering our food aid to the world.
Wow. Let me ask, Chairman Corker, let me ask you about Russia. Obviously, you have, even though it appeared to be in vogue for about 15 minutes for some of the Republican Party, you have maintained a tough line against Vladimir Putin and Russia, straight through. How disturbed are you that we're now getting reports that the Russians may be arming the Taliban?
Look, they're working against our interests there. They're working against our interest in Libya. They're working against our interest in Syria. This is just the standard way that Russia has operated for years. They're working against our interest in Europe, working against our interest in Crimea and Ukraine. And I think we've all done a great job of poisoning the well so that no cheap deal is going to be done with Russia. And I have to say that I think this administration has evolved and grown a great deal in their understanding of what Russia really is up to.
Senator Coons, do you agree with the chairman that the committee stands shoulder to shoulder in understanding that the Russians are not our friends, but in fact work against American interests every day?
I do, Joe. Putin's Russia is an aggressor, an adversary, and across all these different areas, I think he's only going to stop when we stop him. And I think the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, under the leadership of Chairman Corker and Ranking Member Ben Cardin, has put together some strong bipartisan legislation. We've also had great hearings and stepped up to some of the other challenges facing our security, like Iran's ongoing destabilizing actions in the Middle East. And I think you'll see a number of bills come through our committee. In the last Congress, we were very productive legislatively on improving foreign assistance, on improving health security and food security in the developing world. In this Congress, I think you'll see us step up and really confront the challenges of an aggressive Russia and Iran.
Senators, it's Steve Ratner. So tomorrow, all 100 senators, I believe, are going to the White House to be briefed by Rex Tillerson, Jim Mattis, and a bunch of other senior officials about the state of affairs in North Korea, which is obviously not a very good one from anybody's perspective. Do you expect that you're going to hear anything that you don't know already? And how are each of you thinking about our next steps there, given the incredible constraints around us with respect to any kind of use of military force, or in that much more sensitive area than Syria?
My sense is, just in conversations we've had, Steve, right, coming up to this, that I don't think we're going to hear a great deal different than what is out in the open press. I do plan to have one more phone call today with someone that matters, and I have dinner tonight with President Trump on this topic and others, but I don't think so. Look, at the end of the day, this young leader believes that if he develops a deliverable nuclear weapon in the United States, he will die as an old man in his bed, very different than the outcome of Gaddafi in Libya, who gave up his weapons of mass destruction. And at the end of the day, you know, obviously China is the key, and it's almost trite to say that. Everyone understands that. I think that without regime change, and I'm not talking about some kind of kinetic activity today or anything else, but the fact is, I think that's what he's heck bent on developing, because he thinks that's his ticket to life, and I think it's very difficult to overcome a situation like that. And you're right, a miscalculation in the region brings in China, Russia, South Korea, Japan, so we've got to be very careful as we move ahead.
Rick Tyler.
Senator, I think we all agree that a diplomatic solution would run through China. How much do you trust China and President Xi to help us get to a peaceful objective in North Korea?
Senator Coons.
Well, this really is in President Xi's interests, and China is the sole lifeline for North Korea. They are critically dependent on Chinese support. So our continuing to strengthen and bring closer our ties, our long and enduring ties with South Korea and Japan, and engaging with China and making this more their problem than our problem is the only path forward that I see in the short term. We have to have a credible military plan. But frankly, pulling together our allies in the region with China to impose significant sanctions on North Korea, to make them an international pariah, and to circle the pressure on them is, I think, the most likely next step. That's what I think we'll hear at the White House tomorrow from the Trump administration.
If I could add in, I mean, China's history has been one of solely focusing on stability. It's a one-party system. That's all they care about. Getting them to do something durable is going to be the challenge. They're good at head fakes. Well, they'll do a little bit of this or a little bit of that to let the situation ease and go away. But getting them to really commit to something that's durable, painful, and destabilizing inside North Korea is going to be a big challenge. And that's where the administration, that's the challenge this administration needs to tackle.
All right, final question for both of you. President Trump recently called the leader of Turkey and congratulated him. Would either of you have advised him to make that call, or anybody on his foreign policy team? And would you advise the president to perhaps put calls to world leaders through his foreign policy team first to really prepare for them? I'll start with Senator Coons.
Absolutely. I think that President Trump should be relying more on the career professionals in the State Department who often have deep knowledge of particular countries. Our NATO ally, Turkey, that is a key player in the region and is essential to our strategy in Syria, but where Erdogan is increasingly tilting towards an authoritarian streak, I'm not sure I would have encouraged the president to congratulate him on this, given the outcome and given the conduct of his government internally. But I do think he will do a better job the more he relies on not just his immediate inner circle, but also the nonpartisan career professionals of the Foreign Service.
Senator Corker, let me interject here in between.
Like Bob Corker.
Before your answer, actually, Senator Coons did bring up an uncomfortable point, and that is that Turkey, at the same time, is they're lurching towards authoritarianism, and a NATO ally, they play a pivotal role in that region, an extraordinarily pivotal role in that region. How do we balance those two competing interests?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Joe, since 1991, when the Soviet Union collapsed and we had bipolar foreign policy, the world has become much, much, much more complicated. As to the specific question, look, I do think that Mattis, Tillerson, and McMaster are playing a good role, and I think the administration, from my standpoint, has grown relative to foreign policy to a place that I'm far more comfortable with. I have to say, I think they've done a good job in that regard, and certainly have worked with us to get there. I would not have made the call. Look, Erdogan, you think about Turkey 10 years ago, what a model for the Muslim world as far as how they were. And over the last 10 years under Erdogan's leadership, it's going in a very negative direction. So to me, it's certainly not something to applaud. It is concerning that we have a NATO ally that is moving towards a lesser democracy within its own country, and it's not, in my opinion, it's not something to congratulate him on.
All right, Senators Bob Corker and Chris Coons, thank you so much for doing the interview together and
thank you, guys.
Honest answers. It's very refreshing.
We love it. Great to see you, as always.
Take care.
Thank you.
Up next on Morning Joe.